44 years ago this month, a deadly fire killed 7 children and a father in Cohoes, and the investigation was never finished. For years, mother and wife Virginia Gratto was suspected. 44 years ago, NewsChannel 13 sent a team to Washington State to ask Gratto the tough questions.
Walking through this apartment 3 months after the fatal fire, there's a sense of almost suspended animation about it. There are many items left here that obviously belong to the Grattos, things as impersonal as kitchen items, some as personal as Mrs. Gratto's teeth left in a dish there in the kitchen cabinet. Life is much different now for Virginia Gratto. Married to Norman Utegard after a one-day romance, she lives on an apple orchard in Washington State, a continent away from the June 2nd tragedy. This past weekend, sitting in the dining room of her new home, Virginia Gratto Utegard went through a painful reconstruction of the events. We sketched the outlines of her apartment, and then she began a minute-by-minute account. The children had been put in beds upstairs, except for the 4-month-old twins, who were in cribs in the dining room area. Her husband, John, had fallen asleep in the living room, and Virginia Gratto watched the Quincy series from a bedroom nearby.
So that was 11 o'clock. Almost exactly.
Yeah, just about, a little bit before, maybe about 5 of. So I turned it off and went to bed.
Mm-hmm. What was your normal sleeping position in that bed? Did you
I was on this side, on the outside. And, well, most of the time I slept on my stomach with, I probably had laid on my right side of my head, my face.
Okay.
But I couldn't say for sure.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Now some time passed. Do you have any idea how much time?
It was a short time because, let's see, well, probably 20 minutes, half hour, I don't know. Sarah had woke me up.
Sarah was where?
Sarah was right here.
In that crib?
Yeah, she cried. And I woke up.
So what did you do at that point then?
I got up and...
Just sort of follow the path here if you could.
All right, I got up here, up this side, and went out as far as here, and I couldn't breathe.
There was
smoke.
Smoke already.
Dark smoke, yeah. And there was no lights on. Usually I had a nightlight on. There was no lights at all. I wanted to turn that way towards the children, but I couldn't because I couldn't breathe, so I went right out the front door.
You didn't come back this way?
I slightly turned because at that point I couldn't breathe. You know, it's breathing normally, the heavy smoke. I had to get air and realized it was smoke from a fire, and I went right out, fumbled with the door here because it was locked, then right out to the street.
Okay. Now, how much time had you estimate between the time you heard Sarah's cry, the time you got up, turned slightly here, and got out that door?
10, maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds at the most.
Tops.
At the most, yes.
How do you... Now, you later were found to have some superficial burns on your face. Do you have any idea how you got the burns?
From what I can figure was the heat in the room. Like I said, I must have been laying on my right side of my face. So it had to have been pretty much hot in there while I was sleeping.
All right, let's go over it again then. At maybe 20 after, you woke up after turning the television sets off. You woke up when you heard Sarah's cry. You got out of the bed.
Yeah.
You walked to the door, turned toward this direction, but the smoke was thick.
Yeah.
Black smoke.
Yeah, and I couldn't breathe.
You couldn't breathe. You had no idea if John was still here.
I had no idea where he was at that point.
And then you headed out the front door to get help.
Yes.
And never could get back in.
That's right.
One of the police probers close to the investigation of the arson fire that killed the Gratto family has been quoted as saying that Mrs. Gratto's version of events does not stand up, that the burns on her face were consistent with a flash fire, indicating she was much closer to the fire than she says. Recent reports have also indicated the fire began inside the locked rear portion of the house, and by Mrs. Gratto's description, the front doors were also locked. Tomorrow, Virginia Gratto gives her answers to some of the tough questions that continue to surround this tragedy. Richard Townley, Newswatch 13 in Cohoes.
The police reopened the Gratto investigation in 2010, but so far the case is still a mystery. Tomorrow, Gratto explains some of her behavior following the fire that had people of Cohoes wondering, why would she act that way? Opening News Vault 13, I'm Rachel Teedy.